And quite frankly, at some point, Canada has to start working for Alberta, and it's not right now.
Whoa, we got some big stuff going on here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, Danielle Smith is saying that if Alberta is not treated fairly, if all this eco-green zealot net zero stuff is not repealed, she's going to put a referendum forward to Albertans to separate from Canada. They will become their own country. They would potentially join with America. Who knows what's going to happen here, because Albertans are not happy. And Danielle Smith is leading the charge on this. And ultimately, the people will decide. We also got Pierre Poilievre having a rally, bringing out big numbers, Liberal stronghold, PEI, as well as we're going to compare Pierre's recent Winnipeg rally to Mark Carney's Winnipeg rally, which just happened last night. Let's jump into this. First up on Polymarket, we're not taking this too serious, obviously, because there's so much garbage news in the media. I mean, when you have CBC pushing out propaganda for the Liberals every day at $1 million a day, you don't know what to believe anymore, but this is where it's sitting right now. This is important to note because we're going to look at the rallies and we can decide for ourselves what's going on. This one here showing 57 versus 43. This one showing 67 versus 32. This is most seats. This one here, interesting. This is the presidential election winner. And so we can see Kamala Harris is this blue one. As you can see, she was ahead for a little bit of it here, and then eventually Donald Trump took it. So a little bit of a bobble there, but that's obviously not the same as what we've got going on here. But keep in mind, we still have 3 weeks to go. And what I'm talking about is this kind of stuff. City News Toronto coming out. And today's the big story. Why is Poilievre losing his stronghold on Canadians? Maybe he's not losing his stronghold. Maybe the polls are done in a matter where they're not honest. Maybe we have entire polling companies that are pro-liberal doing anything possible to try making the Liberals win, that they're painting a narrative that isn't accurate. Maybe you guys should report on that. So we got a poll here coming from Nanos Research showing 49% for Carney, 34% for Pierre, 5% for the NDP, Blanchette with 3%, and 1% for the other two. Yeah, I'm not buying this data. This is no way how the election would go right now. It's just not. BS. 1,200 people who answered the phone. Most of us work and do not have time. Propaganda. We got Melissa here saying, yikes, Canadians are leaving Canada at the highest rate in 58 years. 24,533 Canadians said goodbye to Canada, up 3% compared to last year, and 30% higher than 2019. That's the Liberals' legacy. Forcing Canadians out of Canada because it's too expensive. I mean, look what we got here. Canada's economy here under the Conservatives goes up. Liberals goes down. Next up, we're going to the rallies. We got the pleb posting this one. Pierre supporter says deport Mark Carney at this rally.
This party has been honest about. He wants to raise. Well, in fairness, Mark Carney has not been in the country for most of his adult life, so.
Yeah, somebody's got to calculate that. How many years has Mark Carney lived in Canada as an adult? It's probably almost 0 years. And speaking of Mark Carney, check out this clip. So this is when he packed the pub with 50 people the other night. As Alan says, he's a bloody awful campaigner. It doesn't get worse than this.
You're going to be able to buy a home. You're going to be able to afford a home. Just like I could afford a home. You've got a future. We're going to build a future. We're building a future for you guys right here. Oh my God, this is why I'm in this. Actually, right there. We are also going to find some new friends. This is at the core of why this election is so important. Is you take a few lessons from the last few months. We take a few lessons. One of them is that we really have to look out for ourselves. We understand how to grow the economy, and we will grow this economy. We understand how we can build and build together, but we also understand why. Yes, it's for the good jobs and great futures for younger Canadians. Yes, it's for a sustainable economy and future here. But it's also for those who are less fortunate than we are. For the 8 million Canadians, 20% of our population that cannot afford it, aren't going to the dentist. 8 million Canadians. The great thing is that Adam is buying. Let's go to the bar. Thank you very much.
Good job, man.
I thought he was going to say 8 million Canadians can't afford to eat 3 meals a day. Seem to glaze over that fact. I think it's actually 10 million, not 8. It's really sad, and I hate to say it, but Justin Trudeau ran a better campaign. Justin Trudeau was a politician, a slimeball politician. Mark Carney doesn't know how to campaign at all. Carney has the personality of a kitty litter box. This is cringe-worthy. Riveting stuff. The energy in the room is palpable. Next up in this bombshell news, we've got Danielle Smith here coming from CTV Edmonton, says Premier plans post-election panel to gauge Albertans' appetite for referendum. That's right. Mark Carney wants to bring his net zero agenda. Danielle Smith is going to put it to the people to separate from Canada. This would work in a way that Alberta separates, becomes its own country, and then puts forward an offer to America and tries to work out a deal to join America. That's essentially how this would go, with a whole lot of other steps in there. Will this be possible? It is complicated. And so she spoke on this today, actually a couple times.
Do have citizen-initiated referenda, and it will be up to Albertans to decide what kinds of questions that they want to put forward. I don't think we've seen any successful citizen-initiated referenda yet, but that's the mechanism for things like that. For my part, what I'm going to do is continue to advocate for whoever happens to be the prime minister to make good on the 9 things that we want changed. We want to see an end to emissions caps. We want to see an end to net zero power regs, net zero vehicles, net zero building codes. We want to make sure that we control our own environment for methane emissions. We want to make sure that we don't have a ban on tanker traffic off the West Coast, that we have control over our process to approve pipelines with an end to Bill C-69 and a couple of other things. Those are things I'm advocating for, and I will continue advocating for them after the election. I will give whoever happens to be in the chair 6 months to make good on trying to address some of those critical problems for Alberta. And then at the same time, I'll be going across Alberta on what I'm calling our What's Next panel to see what kind of feedback we get. But we can't stop trying to get the right policies in place. As I mentioned, we have a prime minister right now who says one thing in English, one thing in French, one thing in Eastern Canada, one thing in Western Canada, one thing to me, and then one thing to when he's asked by the media. So I don't actually know what this prime minister is going to do. I'm not encouraged by that flip-flopping so far, but we'll see what happens after this next election. But those are bottom line things. If you want to get pipelines built, if you want to get corridors established, if you want to open up markets, you have to get rid of all of the policies that are dampening investment in our country. And you can't have it both ways. So I'll continue pressing for it, and I hope there's a change of heart after the election.
Wow. Basically saying if the Liberals win, this is what's going to happen. We're going to go to referendum for Alberta separating. If Pierre Poilievre wins, Canada stays together, Alberta prospers, Pierre cuts all the garbage, our country booms. And we've got exactly that here. So Pierre's got a plan here. This was given to him, as he'll say here, given to him by energy companies of what they need.
Here we have it, folks. These are all the demands. These are all the demands that our energy sector has made. These are not my demands. These demands come from the 14 biggest energy companies in Canada. They're the ones that put a letter together, and they've said very clearly and very simply, it's not a matter of debate. Either you do these 5 things, or we will stay dependent on the Americans. There is no way to build pipelines, LNG plants, to harvest our resources unless we do these 5 things. Mr. Carney, he has made some vague mutterings about how he might be inclined to change his position that he took over the last decade. But it's time for him to get specific. Will he reverse himself on the Liberal no new pipelines law and tanker ban, the Liberal delays on project approvals, the Liberal cap on our energy, the Liberal industrial carbon tax, the Liberal patronizing approach to our First Nations? I ask you to pose that question to him directly. And if his answer is anything but yes, then if he's not willing to say that he's abandoning all of his principles and his policies, then you can be very sure that under a 4th Liberal term, our energy sector will continue to be crushed and the Americans will continue to win our money, our jobs, our energy at huge discounts. It is no wonder that Donald Trump is so determined to see Mark Carney stay in power. Mark Carney is a weak, out-of-touch leader who never puts Canada first. He had 3 passports up until not long ago. He moved his headquarters out of Canada to New York City. While supporting carbon taxes here, he invested in American coal. While opposing pipelines here, he profited off of foreign pipelines. He continues to have those foreign conflicts, which will prevent him from doing what's right for Canada.
That's all right on the money there. All those investments through Brookfield Asset Management's UAE, Brazil, coal in America, Australia. Yet none of that can happen in Canada because Canadian prosperity gets in the way of those juicy stock options he has with Brookfield, amounting to $7 million. We wouldn't want to affect the value of that now, would we? No. Heading back over to Danielle Smith here, Juno News, saying she responds to critics who claim she's entertaining the idea of Alberta independence.
In regards to your What's Next post-election panel that you mentioned over the weekend, what would you say to those who criticize you for sort of entertaining the idea of Alberta independence as Canada faces a trade war and threats of annexation from the U.S.?
Well, I love Canada, and I want Canada to work. I've been on Team Canada from the beginning. It's part of the reason why I've been relentlessly going to the United States and trying to advocate for all of our industries, for all of Canada, in every venue I possibly can. But I'm also Premier of Alberta, and quite frankly, at some point, Canada has to start working for Alberta, and it's not right now. We have a number of policies that came in over the last 10 years that have been damaging to Alberta prosperity. It's been damaging to our freedom as a province. And if they persist, it is going to continue a dysfunctional relationship that harms Alberta. So I put forward the 9 major policies that I think have to be repealed after the next election. Unfortunately, the current Prime Minister, despite what he said to me privately when he was here, has now gone public saying he supports export taxes, he supports Bill C-69, he supports emissions caps. That is moving in the wrong direction. So we will get through this election. We'll see who ends up winning, and I will continue to advocate for those. And that's part of the reason why I will do a What's Next panel. We did that when when my predecessor came in to hear some of the concerns that Albertans had about how to repair the relationship with Canada at that time. And it'll be time for us to do it again.
Things heating up here. I mean, can you really blame Alberta? No, I mean, they pay the bills around here in Canada. Carney won't move on any of those 9 policy changes. He's anti-oil except when it lines his own pockets. Okay, so moving on for Trump tariff situation so far, this is what we've got. Caroline Levitt here breaking a chart.
Look at the unfair trade practices that we have. 50% from the European Union on American dairy. You have a 700% tariff from Japan on American rice. You have a 100% tariff from India on American agricultural products. You have
Wait a second. America grows rice? Really? Okay. That's news to me.
nearly a 300% tariff from Canada on American butter and American cheese. This makes it virtually impossible for American products to be imported into these markets, and it has put a lot of Americans out of business and out of work over the past several decades. So it's time for reciprocity, and it's time for a president to take historic change to do what's right for the American people, and that's going to take place. Look at the unfair.
You know, this is very fair. And the way it's laid out with all the different countries, and it's not just singling out Canada. I'm totally on board with this. Make reciprocal tariffs. Canada should be getting rid of the dairy cartel. And this whole tariff talk, scary Donald Trump situation with Canada just needs to go away. We need a new mandate from Pierre Poilievre, negotiate some deals on some stuff, a new Kuzma deal, and we move on. She does not come to play games. Okay, next up, we're going to be comparing some rallies here. This is Mark Carney's rally in Winnipeg. And something to note, they use mirrors in every single one of their rallies. It's crazy. They must go there and set up mirrors in every single venue that they go to. Look at this. These walls are mirrors. This whole thing is a mirror. This is to double the look of the crowd. The dirty tactics. Just keep that in mind. These are walls here. All these people back here don't exist.
Evaluation. One project, one evaluation. We're moving forward fast. And at the end of the first week,
this room isn't that big. You can see from here to the other side, the Canada flag is the full size of the room, despite the mirrors doubling the size. Some reports saying 1,800 people. In this one section right here is 50 people. So 1,800 people, I'd say there's 1,000 people there. We've got another shot here. So interesting enough, Mark Carney's wife finally introduces him. She's just been a ghost. And the reason why is if she's not around, nobody sees her, nobody's talking about her, being part of the Eurasia group, getting money from the Canadian government, their whole agenda. She's an absolute net zero zealot, just like Mark Carney is. And a side note here, look at the age of all these people. Do I have to make some jokes here? I mean, did they go pick up all these people at the graveyard to bring them in? I kid, but these people are all old. They're all really old. So in comparison, here's Pierre Poilievre's rally in Winnipeg. So as you can see, lots of people. This one has already been counted at 3,500 people. So more than double the size. Much bigger building. You can see just the building is twice the size. And this one here is in Prince Edward Island. Population 180,000 people. As Kevin says here, this riding has been Liberal for over 30 years. This is outrageous to get this many people in such an underpopulated place. Okay, so we have to turn off the music as per usual, but yeah, there's a lot of people here. There's more people here than Carney's Winnipeg rally. I don't know how many that is, but it looks like over 2,000 at least. Yeah, wow. Impressive. Pierre's pulling big crowds everywhere he goes. Poilievre's rally in PEI shows real momentum. Liberals can't ignore this shift. Forget about the polls. These are the polls. Oh, you gotta check out this. So Rachel Gilmore got fired from her CTV fact checker segment because too many people were complaining about her being the fact checker. I mean, that's what happens when you're not for the people. She complains that she's so good at journalism and she doesn't know why she has all these trolls after her. It's because you're not fighting for the people, Rachel. Maybe wake up. It comes down to it. The fact that CTV would even consider her to be their fact checker, it's insane. And just seeing what they did yesterday when that whole Paul Chang, this thing is blowing up and suddenly CTV comes out with a conservative podcast where he's making a joke about Hangman. CTV seems to have some ammo waiting, but they're waiting for the opportune times to help the Liberals. Canadians are not stupid. We see what's going on here. We've been getting duped for years. That's why people stop watching mainstream media. There's no trust. There's no briefcases of cash coming in through the back door here bribing me to say certain things. I spit the honest truth. The mainstream media hasn't seemed to figure that out yet. Once you lose the audience trust, you're screwed. They think they can just get it back by waving a wand. It's not going to happen. Rachel Gilmore needs to take accountability for what she said in the past. There's a lot of people upset about things she said during the Freedom Convoy. That's why you've got trolls coming after you on every single post you do, Rachel. Next up, we got this one from Pat King. So he got his sentence and it says, so Canada, I'm charged and sentenced to 1 year in jail for counseling people to honk horns. MP Paul Chang counseled people to kidnap and collect $1 million bounty, and all he has to do is step aside and apologize. Rules for me, not rules for thee. This really hits it home here. The rule of law in Canada, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. We don't have a justice system that is just. That's the only way to say it. And speaking of Paul Chang, Andy Lee digging this up, she's got the actual clip of him saying it.
Be a business in Hong Kong and here in Canada, he's a radio host or I don't know, for Singtel Media or so Fairchild, he was a media person. So that's all he did all his life. But also right now, he is wanted by the Chinese government. And there's a $1 million reward on his head. So they want, if you guys want to pick him up and take him to the Chinese consulate, you make him $1 million.
That's so funny. He's not getting sleep at night now. That's so funny.
I'm just joking, but there is a arrest warrant out for him from the government of China, and there is some reward for him. But apart from that, I can't say more than that.
Awful. I'm just joking, but there's really an warrant to arrest and a reward. What? It's actually worse than just hearing people talk about it. This should be a strong message to every Canadian. This is someone who would do this to a government official. Not to mention he was a police officer. What the hell do Canadians think and Carney would do to you? Wake up, Canadians. So once again, this is okay, but telling truckers to honk their horns, 1 year in jail after spending something like hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees for Pat King. Our country is falling apart. There's no justice in this country. Now, it wouldn't be Canada if we didn't end this one with a good old-fashioned home invasion. This is a good one, though. They're now using ladders to break into the second floor.
Criminals in Canada are now bringing ladders to break into the second floor of your house to steal your belongings. Look at this story in Oakville. In Oakville, Ontario. Look at this. I'd like to inform you that another break-in took place on Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. The robbers climbed up a second floor and broke a small master bedroom closet window. They went through the entire house and took jewelry, watches, and designer clothing. They left the cash, technology, and cars. The safe was wheeled out to the garden and broken open. If anyone has any information, please let me know. This is happening to so many people in Oakville, Ontario. Here's another person. That is exactly how my house was robbed in November. They took a ladder and put it against the roof that leads to the second floor. And for many of these homes, if you're backing up to a park and green space, they are targeting those homes. What's crazy about this is I moved to Oakville 4 years ago thinking Oakville is the safest neighborhood in the Greater Toronto Area. Now we are the #1 target for all of these criminals that this Liberal government has imported from around the world. They're breaking into our homes, stealing our vehicles, terrorizing our families and children. It's honestly insane.
This is a Liberals Canada. Vote wisely. The ladders might as well have NDP and Liberal logos on them. They need to break into Doug Ford's house or Olivia Chow's house and Justin Trudeau's house. Maybe then something will be done. Now, they say that kind of cheeky, but it's true. If they broke into all of the politicians' houses, all the Liberal NDP politicians' houses, maybe they would have done something about it, because then they realize it's a real problem. Politicians can be selfish like that, only till it actually affects them. I think people should be placing bear traps on the insides of their doors and hallways. That would be hilarious. Are we going to be voting for a conservative government, or are we going to have 4 more years of home invaders?